Brace yourself for a journey through the hidden underbelly of Latin America. In a region celebrated for its vibrant cultures and diverse populations, there lies a shocking reality of deep-seated racism and discrimination. From systemic inequality to personal stories of struggle, we're uncovering the top 12 most racist countries in Latin America. You won't believe the injustices that still persist today. Stay tuned, because what you're about to learn will change your perspective forever. Welcome back to our channel, where we uncover the truth and break down the world's most controversial topics. If you're new here, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss an eye-opening video like this one. Today, we're diving deep into a topic that's rarely discussed but incredibly important: the top 12 most racist countries in Latin America. Stay tuned, because what we reveal might surprise you. Racism is a global issue, but its manifestations can vary significantly from one region to another. Latin America, with its rich cultural history and diverse populations, is no exception. This region is home to a complex tapestry of races, ethnicities, and cultures, resulting from centuries of colonization, migration, and social stratification. Despite the vibrant multiculturalism, racism and discrimination persist in various forms, often deeply embedded in social, economic, and political structures. In many Latin American countries, the legacy of colonization and the slave trade has left profound scars, creating a racial hierarchy that privileges lighter-skinned individuals while marginalizing those of African, indigenous, and Asian descent. These prejudices are often perpetuated through media representation, employment opportunities, education, and even government policies. Understanding these dynamics is crucial for addressing the root causes of racism and promoting social justice and equality. In this video, we'll explore the top 12 most racist countries in Latin America, examining the historical context, current realities, and personal stories that highlight the ongoing struggle against discrimination. Our goal is not to single out these countries for condemnation, but to raise awareness and inspire action towards a more inclusive and equitable future. Without further interruptions, let's dive in. 1. Brazil. Brazil, the largest country in Latin America, is often celebrated for its vibrant culture, carnival, and football. However, beneath this colorful exterior lies a troubling history of racial inequality. Brazil was the last country in the Americas to abolish slavery in 1888, and the legacies of this dark past still linger today. Afro-Brazilians, who make up more than half of the population, face systemic discrimination. They are disproportionately affected by poverty, violence, and limited access to quality education and healthcare. Despite their significant contributions to Brazilian culture, Afro-Brazilians are often underrepresented in positions of power and overrepresented in the country's favelas, where living conditions are dire. The Brazilian media and entertainment industries have also been criticized for perpetuating negative stereotypes about Afro-Brazilians, further entrenching racial biases. While there have been efforts to address these issues, such as affirmative action policies in universities, progress has been slow and inconsistent. Brazil's struggle with racism is a stark reminder of the enduring impact of colonialism and slavery in shaping contemporary social dynamics. 2. Mexico. Mexico's rich cultural heritage is a testament to its diverse population, which includes a significant number of indigenous peoples and Afro-Mexicans. However, this diversity is often overshadowed by systemic racism and discrimination. Indigenous Mexicans, who have lived on these lands for millennia, frequently face exclusion from economic opportunities and essential services like healthcare and education. Afro-Mexicans, descendants of enslaved Africans brought during the colonial era, have historically been marginalized and are often invisible in national narratives. They face significant barriers to social and economic mobility and are underrepresented in media and political spheres. The Mexican government's recognition of Afro-Mexicans as a distinct ethnic group in the 2015 census was a step towards inclusion, but much remains to be done. Persistent stereotypes and a lack of representation continue to hinder progress. Understanding and addressing the unique challenges faced by these communities is crucial for building a more inclusive Mexico. 3. Argentina. Argentina, often perceived as predominantly European in its cultural and racial identity, has a complex and often overlooked history of racial diversity. This narrative has led to the marginalization of both indigenous peoples and Afro-Argentines. Indigenous communities, such as the Mapuche and Quechua, have been fighting for their land rights and cultural recognition amidst a backdrop of systemic discrimination and economic exclusion. The Afro-Argentine population, though significantly diminished due to historical factors like wars, epidemics, and systemic policies aimed at whitening the population, continues to face social invisibility and discrimination. Afro-Argentines are often absent from media representation and national discussions about identity, contributing to their social and economic marginalization. Despite some efforts to recognize and celebrate Argentina's multicultural heritage, the nation still grapples with its colonial legacies and the need to embrace its full racial and cultural diversity. 4. Colombia. Colombia's racial dynamics are deeply influenced by its history of slavery and colonization, which have left a lasting impact on its Afro-Colombian and indigenous populations. Afro-Colombians, who primarily reside in the Pacific and Caribbean regions, face significant socio-economic challenges, including high levels of poverty, limited access to education, and poor healthcare services. These communities are often caught in the crossfire of Colombia's armed conflict, leading to displacement and further marginalization. Indigenous peoples such as the Wayuu and Embera struggle to preserve their lands and cultural heritage in the face of ongoing violence and exploitation. The Colombian government has made some strides in recognizing the rights of these communities, but implementation of protective measures remains inconsistent. Racism and discrimination are pervasive, affecting the ability of Afro-Colombians and indigenous peoples to fully participate in society. Addressing these deep-rooted issues requires a concerted effort to dismantle systemic barriers and promote social inclusion. 5. Chile. In Chile, the Mapuche people, the largest indigenous group in the country, have long fought for their rights and recognition. The Mapuche have a rich cultural heritage and a deep connection to their ancestral lands, but they face significant challenges including land dispossession, discrimination, and violence. Land disputes between the Mapuche and the government or private landowners are common, often leading to violent clashes. The Chilean state has historically marginalized the Mapuche, leading to higher poverty rates and less access to education and healthcare within their communities. Despite these challenges, the Mapuche continue to resist and advocate for their rights, drawing attention to the ongoing issues of racism and inequality in Chile. 6. Peru. Peru's history of colonization has left a lasting impact on its social fabric, particularly affecting indigenous and Afro-Peruvian communities. Indigenous peoples, who make up a significant portion of the population, face systemic discrimination in nearly every aspect of life. They often live in impoverished conditions, with limited access to healthcare, education, and employment opportunities. Afro-Peruvians, descendants of African slaves, also experience significant prejudice and economic marginalization. Despite their rich cultural contributions, they are frequently underrepresented in media and politics. Efforts to address these inequalities have been slow, and both indigenous and Afro-Peruvian communities continue to struggle for recognition and equal treatment. 7. Venezuela. In Venezuela, Afro-Venezuelans and indigenous peoples face profound challenges, exacerbated by the country's ongoing political and economic crises. Afro-Venezuelans, many of whom live in impoverished coastal regions, are often excluded from economic opportunities and face significant barriers in education and employment. Indigenous groups such as the Wayuu and Paimon struggle to maintain their cultural heritage while dealing with discrimination and neglect from the state. The economic collapse has further marginalized these communities, making it harder for them to access basic services and support. Despite these hardships, Afro-Venezuelans and indigenous peoples continue to fight for their rights and visibility. 8. Cuba. Although Cuba promotes itself as a racially inclusive society, the reality for many Afro-Cubans tells a different story. Afro-Cubans, who make up a substantial part of the population, often face discrimination in the job market and social spheres. While the Cuban government has made strides in education and healthcare, these benefits are not always equally distributed. Afro-Cubans are underrepresented in higher-paying jobs and leadership positions. Moreover, they face social prejudice and are often stereotyped negatively in media. The struggle for racial equality in Cuba is ongoing, with Afro-Cubans advocating for greater representation and equal treatment. 9. Dominican Republic. The Dominican Republic has a complex relationship with race, particularly regarding its Haitian population and darker-skinned citizens. Haitians and Dominicans of Haitian descent face severe discrimination and are often denied basic rights, including citizenship, education, and healthcare. This racial tension is rooted in historical conflicts and perpetuated by nationalist rhetoric. Dark-skinned Dominicans also experience prejudice, which affects their social and economic opportunities. Despite the Dominican Republic's rich cultural diversity, racism remains a significant issue, impacting the lives of many and fueling social divisions. 10. Ecuador. Ecuador's indigenous and Afro-Ecuadorian communities face substantial challenges in their fight for equality. Indigenous groups, including the Quechua and Shuar, often live in isolated areas with limited access to education and healthcare. They struggle for land rights and face environmental threats from mining and deforestation. Afro-Ecuadorians, concentrated in regions like Esmeraldas, encounter economic hardships and social discrimination. They are underrepresented in politics and media, contributing to their invisibility and marginalization. Both communities continue to advocate for their rights and recognition, striving to overcome the systemic barriers that hinder their progress. 11. Guatemala. Guatemala's indigenous Maya people have faced centuries of discrimination and marginalization. Despite making up a significant portion of the population, they are often excluded from political and economic opportunities. Indigenous communities in Guatemala experience high levels of poverty and limited access to education and healthcare. Land rights remain a contentious issue, with many indigenous people struggling to reclaim ancestral lands. The legacy of the country's civil war, which disproportionately affected indigenous populations, continues to influence their fight for equality and justice. Efforts to address these inequalities are ongoing, but much work remains to be done. 12. Honduras. Afro-Hondurans, particularly the Garifuna community, face significant challenges in Honduras. The Garifuna, an Afro-Indigenous group with a rich cultural heritage, struggle for land rights and recognition. They often live in coastal areas threatened by tourism and development projects, leading to displacement and loss of livelihoods. Discrimination and violence against the Garifuna are prevalent, with many facing barriers to education and economic opportunities. Despite these challenges, the Garifuna continue to preserve their cultural identity and fight for their rights, highlighting the resilience and strength of their community. Racism in Latin America is a multifaceted issue rooted in history and perpetuated by societal structures. By shedding light on these injustices, we hope to encourage dialogue and action towards a more just and inclusive society. If you found this video informative, please give it a thumbs up and share it with your friends and family. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell icon so you'll be notified when we release our next eye-opening video. Let's work together to combat racism and build a world where everyone is treated with dignity and respect. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.